Sahara TV, Everything Africa. And in the course of the year, we have dedicated ourselves to making it more than just that. We have strove to cover Africa the best we can and to offer to other Africans the luxury of the free independent press that Nigerians have and continue to enjoy in the form of Sahara TV, Sahara reporters. In Ghana, we have carved a niche, offering the opportunity for Ghanaians home and abroad to hear another perspective of the news they get of the stories they get in the news. Firebrand opposition lawmaker Kennedy Ejapong came by our studios while visiting New York. As usual, he made the headlines. All right, let's speak a bit about the country itself. Obviously, the NPP is disappointed in the way Ghana is running right now, judging from media reports and all of that. What's your personal assessment of how President Mahama and the NDC are running Ghana at this point?
You know, my brother, it's so sad. I think as a Ghanaian and a politician, the only person who can discipline us is God. Probably he has to line up all the politicians in the country, give President Mahama 24 lashes, give the ministers 18 lashes, and give all the parliamentarians, including myself, 12 lashes. Just squeeze the ears and let them go back and do the right thing.
The vice presidential candidate of Ghana's New Patriotic Party, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, wrote a critique on the John Mahama-led government's decision to sign up for an IMF bailout. His critique, titled "Will the Anchor Hold?", made news as he traveled around the world to make his point. In New York, he stopped by our studios to speak with us. What will government do with the IMF deal?
Well, it's essentially an agreement with the country. It's not an agreement with a government or a party. You know, so you will have to take it as you meet it, and try to implement what you can. If there are aspects that conflict, you can have discussions about it.
Yes. So a lot happened and continue to happen in Burundi. President Pierre Nkurunziza ignored popular sentiment and the advice of the international community to seek and grab a third term in office. In the process, press freedom suffered. Radio Bonisha FM, a popular and critical radio station in the capital Bujumbura, was shut down with the staff going underground. We managed to dig up a radio personality with Radio Bonisha FM who gave us further insights into the issue. So to speak, we hear that those who support the president are Hutu and those who don't are Tutsi. Is it true?
No, it's not true. It's not true because even for the people who protest against Pierre Nkurunziza, some of them are Tutsi, some of them are Hutu, so it's just a pretext just to justify this situation. But really, ethnic problem have been over here in Burundi. We don't have any problems about ethnics. We have some soldiers who are Hutu, we have some soldiers who are Tutsi, but the problem is not ethnics, it's another problem.
The world was shocked at the spate of xenophobic attacks that hit South Africa some months ago. We reached out to speak to Oheli Kalanga, a journalist in that country. Let me ask you again, what's your own assessment of the government's response to this whole crisis? And I'm not talking about just the current spate, I'm talking of the whole problem of xenophobia in South Africa. What's your assessment of the government's treatment of the topic, of the problem?
Well, we've seen governments come forward very strongly condemning the attacks and pleading with locals to allow foreign nationals to stay in the country, especially Africans, because we come from a history of apartheid, where a lot of African countries really did help in securing the freedom and the liberation of the South African state. So you've seen a lot of South African ministers come forward and plead with the people and say that, you know, we're all interrelated and that their freedom is based on our freedom and that they helped in our liberation. But there just seems to be a dislocation between the people on the ground and the government, where people say government is not listening to their grievances. They do not want to hear rhetoric anymore. They do not want to hear long speeches. They want food on their tables. They want accommodation. They want jobs. And they feel that government is not listening to their cries. So government has put forward a number of things that they will be doing in terms of controlling how much business foreigners can have in the country, and in terms of assessing how they can help South Africans with jobs and education and employment and accommodation.
And on the other tip of Africa, scores of lives were lost in a series of migration disasters. Many Africans seeking to cross over into Europe via the Mediterranean lost their lives. This has almost become a phenomenon. We spoke to yet another journalist, Mark Mikalev, of the Times of Malta, on the issue.
How these immigrants, if I may call them that, how are they received by Malta?
Generally, not so good. So if you had to take a poll out there, I would hazard a guess that 80% of the Maltese population doesn't want the migrants in Malta. There's a racist element among a smaller portion of the population, but the general feeling isn't one of welcome. It started off as being very welcoming. So when we first started seeing the first boats, let's say 12 years ago, the reaction was consistently compassionate. Right. But that changed over time as the amount of boats and the amount of people grew. Luckily, this week, the response to the tragedy, where 800 migrants died in one single accident off our...
Meanwhile, Ethiopians in the diaspora decry the country's poor human rights and governance records. They also got audience with us. Watch this.
Okay, so you're saying that you can attest to the fact that there has been some harassment going on in unlawful detention. I'm trying to know if you're agreeing with some of the articles that I've been reading. They're all suggesting that the current ruling party has 100% control of the government. Is this true in any way, or would you dispute this?
I think that's an understatement to me. The TPLF, basically the TPLF, which is the nucleus of the EPRDF, it is a party, it is a state, and it's a government. Basically, it is a big economic institution too. So it is basically everything in Ethiopia, and it can do everything it wants in Ethiopia. It can take Ethiopia from A to Z, from Z to A, or whatever.
And finally, on a bright note, Zambian writer and academic Namwali Sepel won the Kane Prize for African Writing. She did something exceptional. She chose to share her over $15,000 prize money with her fellow shortlisted candidates. Namwali was our guest a while ago and explained the reason for her decision. And after you won the prize, you decided to share the money with my
shortlisted, fellow shortlistees.
Why?
I made that decision a few days before the prize, and it really had to do with the strangeness of being in a context where you're really supporting each other, you're really encouraging each other. The five of us were, going from panel to panel, being interviewed together, but we were also socializing, talking about books, about our families. And then to have this competitive structure kind of imposed on us was quite disconcerting to me. And it didn't seem to suit the atmosphere between us. I don't think that literature is really a competition. And for me, because I have a job, and I've had a job for quite some time, I'm a grown woman, I wouldn't say that everyone has to do this if they win a prize, but for me, I knew that I could. So I said to myself, in the unlikely event that I win this prize, I think I will share this prize with my fellow writers.
From Cape to Cairo, we have featured stories as they pop up and have reached into these places to speak with the people, the real people on the ground, as well as people in authority. In short, we remain committed to our pledge to offer a solid platform for Africa to seek accountability of its leaders. We have stayed true to our commitment to bring unbiased reportage of stories across Africa to Africans and all who have an interest in the beloved continent. We have stayed true to our mantra, Sahara TV, everything Africa.